Okay, good evening. I will open tonight's meeting at 7:04. Capital Planning Committee of Monday, December 4th, 2023, at the Ritter Building, Lower Conference Room. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel on Facebook Live at a later date, and it will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting's conclusion. If you have a computer, smartphone, or tablet and you wish to join this meeting, it is a Zoom meeting, and it is webinar ID 829-4336-3464. If you'd like to join by phone, the number is 888-475-4499. And once again, the webinar ID is 829-4336-3464. The posted agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at tonight's meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Those may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. This is our call to order. I would ask if anybody of the committee has any public comment before we begin. Okay, does anybody from the public have any public comment? Also seeing none. So primary tonight is now beginning the discussion. We have heard all the presentations from all the departments over the past 5 meetings, and tonight we'll begin an open discussion over the capital planning requests in their entirety and discuss some preliminary prioritization. People can discuss whatever they would want, whatever they want to review. I will note that we received 2 revisions from prior presentations, one from the facilities and parks and one from the school. I don't know if people would like to start there, but basically I will try to moderate an open discussion between the committee and how they would like to approach this, number one, and where they would like to start the discussion.
So I could share briefly to the school document that we shared today. There was if you recall, there was a slide missing from the previous deck, and there was also a discrepancy in terms of how the slides listed against the school committee's priorities, which were unfortunately not in this PDF deck, but it's a slide second to the end. I guess it's slide 64, which is if you go all the way to the end of that.
Slide 64, let's just go to 64. Okay.
So this does accurately reflect the priorities that the school committee agreed to in our meeting last month when we went through the prioritization exercise. There has, if you recall, there was a discussion specifically around, and I'm sorry, as I'm looking at this,
Don't tell me it's still not right, because that would not be a good thing.
it's freaking
But
me
I have a
out.
sense,
It's freaking me out as I'm looking at it.
So
So what's missing from this is an item that frankly is not is an item in question right now, which I brought up at our previous meeting, which is the Turkey Hill Elementary School window replacement design work as opposed to the window film. There has been an an extraordinary amount of work that has gone on over the course of the last few weeks since our presentation from the superintendent pertaining to the Massachusetts School Building Authority accelerated repair program. Different than their core program, slightly different criteria and process, which deals with repairs for, it is currently limited to windows, roofs, and boilers. However, through a number of inquiries and webinars and other things that we've been involved in over the course of the last couple of weeks, it appears that number one, the criteria that we thought was true when we made the prioritization, the amount of money that's required and the work that's required up front, as well as the longer term commitments in terms of utilizing the the building after an accelerated repair project, are all potentially different from what we believed. And what appears to be happening is that when the school building authority went reinstalled program, if you recall, they stopped the accelerated repair program for a couple of years to put money into the core program as building costs for school projects that were in flight were inflating. They had given some guidance that they were only going to fund projects that had full designs ready to go. Well, over the course of the last couple of months, it would seem the changes are more extensive than that to the program, to include, for example, a change in the requirement from committing to that building for 10 years for an accelerated repair to for the lifespan of the project. So, for example, what is the lifespan of a roof or a boiler or windows? None of which have they put a number on, but it kind of makes it difficult to assume that you're gonna, go and spend millions of dollars on windows and then commit to the use of that building for, the current windows have been in there since 1969.
And who gets to determine that?
And all of which are valid questions that I don't have answers to. So, suffice to say, that particular item, which is not listed on the priorities list, I personally have some serious reservations. I have serious reservations on it. Will personally not be giving it a high priority. That being said, the school committee still has not met since our last meeting, and will be probably taking action on this on Wednesday to kind of officially deal with it. That being said,
just the windows.
just the windows, yes. So now, if you were to assume for a minute that we don't do the windows project, which I think is a safe assumption right now, the windows will still be at least considered within the study, in determining what the cost would be or what options are related to the windows and and the schematic design, which would be the outcome of that program. In full transparency, the core program also appears to be in flux, although probably not to the degree of the accelerated repair program. But we're not proposing to submit a letter of interest for the core program right now. What we're proposing is to do this study so that we have a better understanding of what the totality of the situation is and how best to proceed in an out year. So I'm less about MSBA in relation to this particular program. I think that this is strategically much more important for the town and for the school department to determine the path that we're going to take with Turkey Hill, whereas the other project is a lot more tactical in terms of getting to a replacement plan for the windows. Everything else remains effectively the same. And I know, and I apologize, that's confusing. It's been a very frustrating run with the MSBA over the last few weeks to try to understand what the heck's going on.
All right, so those are the 9 priorities that they have prioritized. I'm actually a little bit surprised, I don't. With the first one being as low as it is, that seems to be a highly.
Again, this is a vote of the school committee, like exactly, you know, using the same process that we're taking as a committee. You know, there's the strategic importance of the Turkey Hill Elementary School program. Everything else, you know, 5 I view as safety related. 6 and 7, frankly, scored very closely together. And we ultimately agreed to this order, but, you know, it is what it is. The other issue around the design and drainage issue is that we still don't have the results from the original scoping project that we were given the ARPA money for. So, you know, scenario, this would probably go out to bid, you know, for a spring of 2025 project, given the timeline that we're on right now.
Right, what the bidding needs and plan, right?
Yep.
Open it up to the whole committee. Anybody have any questions about this? Any discussion about this?
I have a question.
Yes.
For the safety film. That's broken out on a spreadsheet by the primary school, elementary school, and middle school. Which comes up to like 114. 307, which the original request was 130. Did that change?
My guess would be by that difference between those 2 numbers.
There's a random number without anything next to it, but
I have no idea.
15,000 at the bottom, no. I don't.
15,000 right here.
Yeah.
That's the replacement power.
No,
Yeah,
Oh, no, it's below it.
fiscal year 33.
I think that,
You think
That
it
would be the
relates to the window
difference.
film? Yeah. I don't know.
15,
I'd have to get a clarification on that. I hadn't noticed that, the $15,000.
I only have one window up at a time, so I'm not looking at the whole list.
that is the difference.
Between the original request and the
And-
program.
So one was in a different year?
It's,
Is that what you're saying? I'm not looking at the
it's a second.
page of this.
Mhm.
All right.
Go to the last page of the brief too.
Yeah, I was looking at the last page.
Last page, there you go. Okay,
But
Bottom left corner, there's a
Yeah.
15,000 with,
no-
690.
no headache.
there's no label.
There's no label on it, but
TBD.
yeah, just set that aside for Beard Morris Day or
That's
something.
that's a capital, the school capital plan slush fund.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's clear the difference in the total. I'm not quite sure. I haven't gone back and looked at last year's request versus this year's. I know that there was an inquiry made from the supplier around, okay, because the original quote was for all the buildings, and then we split them out, but I don't know what got us from point A to point B on that.
So hold on a minute, so there's three safety film,
They're broken out by
but then there's,
school, but
Right.
and that difference would equal the 130, but it's no. It's under the district wide,
Yeah,
but
okay, so we don't know, so we need an answer.
we need an answer. Yeah, I'll have to get an answer for you. I just don't know the background on it.
No, I'm still trying to get my computer to come up to look at my notes. Was this year, the next coming year, was there also a roof repair in the school, or was that a future year in the future?
There's a future year roof repair, I believe for Turkey Hill.
Yeah. That in FY 31,
Oh, okay,
so we have some time.
never mind.
Yeah, and the, you know, again, truth be told, all of those items ranging from, you know, electrical, elevator, sprinkler, floor tile, HVAC, roof plumbing, ADA. And those are in 31 because we wanted them to be on the radar somewhere. Yeah, given the MSBA involvement and a variety of other topics, those will all need to be addressed at some point. We're just not sure exactly when.
At 15.5K notwithstanding,
The 15.5K, I gotta get an answer.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
that notwithstanding, anybody have any discussion points that they want to bring up about these?
about the school or. I am,
This is a free form discussion
Yeah,
tonight,
right.
I'm not, so whatever they want to talk about, I assume they want to talk about stuff.
I am very willing to be convinced on the importance of the safety film, but I can't wrap my mind around, and this is a better number than last year. I can't wrap my mind around the dollars spent versus tangible risk, not emotional feeling of risk, because it's scary. But I mean, in terms of the actual odds of it being a problem. I mean, it's the same struggle I had last year with it. I'm open to being convinced otherwise, but I'm really struggling with the notion that that's money, because that's money we could be putting to something else that would improve lives as opposed to in an extremely unlikely scenario would save lives.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of made I've kind of said my piece on
Okay,
here.
that's fine.
I don't, you know, I'm not sure the benefit to everybody else to repeating that.
Okay, that's fine.
You know, other than everyone did exactly what you would expect them to do in light of a major tragedy in which things went down a little bit differently than they've gone down in
Mhm.
previous major tragedies.
Yeah. We're someone
And-
waiting to get him.
And in the weeks and months following, I believe it was Uvalde,
Yeah.
if my timeline is correct. Sadly, they all kind of run it. This was identified as safety concern relative to the perimeter strength of the building, using my words, not anybody else's.
Contact understood.
And, you know, you can do the math. Or try to do the math. I've worked in IT security for most of my professional career. And there's lots of different ways to assess risk and to calculate it. But at the end of the day, the simplest way to do it is probability times impact. You can put a number on probability based on a 5-year calculus of the trends we're on and those kinds of things. I have not done that calculation, probably just for my own personal sanity, but you can do it. And what you'll learn when you do that is that if you look at 1 year, if you look at 5 years, and you look at 10 years, the closer in you look, the higher that probability is going to go up. The are not moving in a positive direction.
That's fair.
The impact, I can't put a number on. I just can't do it. So here we are. What this will do by itself is not save any lives. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is slowing an activity down to allow for response time. And the work was done there, and there was a calculus that was done. The chief of police said, this will add to our ability to respond in a timely manner, given our average response times in the center of town and that sort of thing. And, you know, if thing were to occur that were to go right down this path, could I give you 100% that this would, you know, save a life? I couldn't, right? I mean, it's just, you know, this is a mitigation of something that is low probability and high impact.
No, I appreciate that, and gives me some more thoughts to chew over as well, so thank you.
And in particular, the reason why we split these out this year as opposed to last year was because as we were chewing on this as a school committee, there are vulnerabilities in every building that are similar to the issues that we have at Turkey Hill, floor to ceiling glass, those kinds of things. Turkey Hill, unique to the other two buildings, is single pane glass. And an awful lot, right, to the tune of like 25x what you have in the other buildings in terms of floor to ceiling windows. And right in the front, right? You don't have to go hard. You don't have to look hard for those windows. So the thinking amongst the members of the school committee was, if we split them out and rank Turkey Hill high, then perhaps we can get that taken and mitigate what we would view as the highest risk in terms of that avenue of approach.
Very much appreciated, thank you, gives me more to chew over.
All right.
A good way.
Anybody else on this list?
Not on schools.
Good. Let's switch. To facility.
If I read this right, the TCP asbestos testing has already been completed.
Yes, we found, an assessment report that was done during the Di Gregorio design phase when they were doing the conceptual, design plans for TCP. So there's no, within that, and Chris wanted to review it fully to make sure it covered everything, but, he believes it does, but it doesn't identify the remediation costs. So that would be a secondary step that we need to take before, looking at, you know, the actual abatement costs. The other thing are noted, to include the change number for the Marshall Pond treatment from, it was 256 originally to 50,000. Pushing out, or separating the senior center parking lot project into design and construction phase. So I'm gonna assign a new project number for the senior center parking lot design, because that capital improvement project number was associated with construction as well. So I wanna make sure, 'cause we use that for historical look back to see how long. So I gotta verify, but it will be FM 24-08. And the cost for the design estimate at 35,000. And including the Wallace Park basketball and tennis court resurfacing.
Is this listed, do we know, recall it in priority order?
when Chris did, his presentation is, the projects are listed in that order of priority.
Okay, well, let's quickly go through that. These are these are the ones, but. That's the order. That's the agenda. What do you think that's going to be the order?
So 11 is a medium and 12 is a high.
What are you talking about, 11 and 12?
Slide number.
Okay,
So I don't have to verify them, but that's what we talked about. He was gonna put the projects in order of their priority. Well, I can confirm.
okay, well, public safety building, keyword is a high, okay, so that's a high, that's a high. That's a high, so that's not in order of the way. That's a high, so they're not in order. Okay,
But we have high, medium, and low.
we do have, right, they're just. Hey, guess which one they are?
His prioritization was based upon the Collins scoring or his own independent determination.
His own,
I think it was his own, yeah. I think he made that clear, yeah. So just to review all of them. We'll just quickly go through them. So townwide keying and card access on the town buildings. Public safety building, second floor design for office space and storage. Partial roof replacement of the DPW building. DPW garage floor repairs and coating. Ritter floor replacement, the carpet. Ritter patch and paint, the Ritter rear stair. Covered access, we're making it a covered access. Senior center parking design in this case. Excuse me. Marshall Pond weed treatment, McNally Park survey and design. And Wallace Park basketball and tennis resurfacing. Any discussion on any of those? items?
That's just a way of discussion. The Ritter flooring in patch to me seem low priority. In my own kind of way of ranking things, because I kind of want to see what we're doing with all the buildings and move forward on that. And I just don't think it makes sense to do that if we're gonna do construction. So I think even the stair one, like. Other than, later one mentioned, like, just make it the emergency exit and. If there is a safety concern, close it for entrance, then. It's not that much of a burden in my opinion. Walk around. To me, it just seems like on buildings. We've got to get aligned around a plan and move out on that plan, and I think that this is the year to do it. And all efforts should be prioritized towards doing that.
I agree, but is it gonna happen?
Yes,
Well,
I'm gonna decree it happens.
I don't mean that, just. I've only been in town government 3 years. Or three, something like, whatever, 2020 would have to be. 3 years. A little more. Regardless, every year it's well, we can't do X because we need to get this. I was hearing at town meeting before, but we have to get this municipal building stuff figured out. And I get that we're making progress. I think I agree with you 100% on this, and I think I'm gonna end up there, but I hate the idea of kicking the can down until we X what, I mean, it feels kind of like some items on my honey-do list at this point. Yeah, the things the house really needs, but I still haven't done them.
I think if you allow for the excuse will happen,
That's fair.
right? And I think if you put a strong emphasis behind it, then stuff will move. Honestly, that's the way I feel about it.
No, I think that's a fair point.
My point on these things, I don't disagree with the carpet and the interior because they're not ripped and they're not safety issues. We asked them that specifically, they're just aesthetic issues.
Yeah.
So we don't risk deteriorating the building by not doing it, like the exterior. The stairs, I think is a safety issue that I would not put in that same arena. And as far as that we should come to terms with, or we should come as a town to some agreement on the buildings, while I agree with that in principle, to get there is. We're nowhere than we were 10 years ago. I'd love to think we were, I'd love to think all the work that many people put over 10 years has gotten us closer, but really, if I look at it objectively, it hasn't. But that's not the point of this committee. The point of this committee is not to make that decision. We can make that decision, as I said earlier in the meetings in the season, by just not funding it. So if we think that should happen, we cannot fund certain things. And hope people come to that conclusion, but ultimately we can't make them get to that conclusion.
I guess. My reaction to that would be, or my counter to that would be that if you divide town government the way we do, then it's really no one's job to have the future of the town and no one individual groups. And it takes all of us to kind of, in our swim lanes, work together towards communicate and work towards a vision of that. So I do think we have a part in that. And I think that that's why we use the committee to focus towards that 10-year plan, so that we understand it, we understand all of our needs, we understand how the building needs might be. And then I think on finance committee, we're starting to think about what's the tenure on this, how we're gonna fund everything we wanna do, what can we afford to do it? I think we should also have budgets associated with things. Don't come up with a plan for a building with lacking a budget for the plan of that building. So I think it's time, and I think the more we kind of have that mindset amongst all of the groups, then.
Well, I don't disagree with what you just said. The caveat in that whole thing, or the fly in that whole thing comes down to the design. Everybody wants to come to a conclusion. It's just that everybody wants to come to the same conclusion. That's where the problem is. It's not like there's been lack of design plans. We've had several design plans, several options, and they just get shut down all the time.
I'm very hopeful that the path that we're on will result in something. I'm more hopeful now than I have been at any point in the last 5 or 6 years on this. I feel like there has been an amazing amount of compromise that has gone on over the course of the last couple of years on this. But I agree with Chris, particularly when it's cosmetic. The stuff in the interior of the building that's cosmetic, I just have a really hard time.
Yeah,
The exterior stuff, I would probably rank higher. I just find this particular one a little weird because of its current use. But I also as you think about what's happening with the building plans, I don't know of a scenario where that door goes away or the architecture around that area of the building changes. This problem probably persists.
Even more so to fix it now, right? That's my point.
So this particular one, different from the carpet and walls one, I kind of see both sides of the argument.
It's not huge dollars either.
And it's $35,000, right? It's hundreds of thousands we're talking about in other projects.
And this one I agree on also, in that even if it were an emergency exit, a highly dangerous emergency exit is also not okay.
Yeah.
Because, then people are just slipping and injuring themselves in a high stakes environment, hooray.
Well, it's kind of an emergency during a storm is kind of the real scenario though.
Right.
It's like, compounding for percentages, but
Fair.
also being in the risk business.
Shifting,
To,
I've been trying to, if I may, trying to wrap my mind around the Marshall Park weed, Marshall Pond weed treatment. And maybe this is a bigger thought, but and I know it's low priority, I doubt it's gonna end up there anyway, but I like the idea of maintaining these things for the town. I feel like the town's putting a lot of focus on maintaining bodies of water that shouldn't exist. I mean, these aren't, and Marshall Pond's a great example, it's not natural, we talk about, oh, trying to make it more, try to keep the natural ecosystem, it's not a natural thing, we put a dam there to make a pond, and then we're shocked that it isn't staying the way it is. Now, I think we're, maybe the boat sailed and that we can't just drain the pond and say, oh, well. The part of me that does have biology questions so much about it. I like the idea of, oh, we'll try to be more natural about it. But if you've got this undeveloped area surrounded by lily pads that are all spitting out seeds, or I think they probably use seeds, I have to. How do we prevent it from just going back? And when the answer is, well, the people who sell the products say so. I feel like there has to be civically minded people with environmental science backgrounds in town who'd be happy to volunteer some hours to give some other thoughts. And maybe that's wishful thinking, but we have a very educated populace. And there's gotta be someone who would donate a few hours to talk about,
Well,
is this actually a good idea?
well, I mean, all the other lakes in well, the two of the three major.
the big ones.
But the largest of the lakes, Hickory Hills and Lake Shirley, neither natural lakes either, they have hired many eco-scientists who work there and who all say that, if you, basically, once you start down the path of chemical treatment, that is the path you're going to go on. Because it's not going to naturally get better. It just doesn't that way. Everybody has agreed. So, we would be looking at this, and then the question is, well, how often? I have no idea, so.
It's not a one-time cost.
No,
But
no, ponds made by dams, because beavers do that too, right? Ponds made by dams become marshes, become forests, like they fill in over time, the vegetation creeps in, and that's the natural progression, that's what we're seeing here. I don't know.
So I agree with everything you just said in terms of your reservations. I have a little bit different view on this, which is this is a pond that has been and can be used for recreational purposes, particularly around ice skating. So, if you follow the Historical Society on Facebook, or if you're around here when I was a kid, hockey on that pond in the winter was a pretty big deal. And it could be again in the future if you were not gonna face plant over weeds that were coming through the ice. So I do think that there's a recreational aspect of this, similar to the decision we made around Whalen Lake and treating the town beach at Whalen Lake, which is, we've got a lot of lake acreage in Lunenburg, but we have very little lake acreage that is actually accessible to the public and can be used for doing stuff like swimming or kayaking or skating. And in my mind, that's the benefit here is and again, I don't, you know, I'm probably over rotating on this a little bit, because I skated there as a kid and I enjoyed playing hockey on there as a kid and that kind of thing. But it can be used for that purpose, and it has been used, and I guarantee you that if we could get a smooth sheet of ice out there, it will be used for that purpose.
I think it also leads towards the ultimate goal of being part of a park that's actually a park, not a playground, a play field or a playground. And that is in that whole master plan for Marshall, that one area is where that you could walk down and just kind of be in a park setting.
That's a very fair point. On the recreation side, I guess. For me to care about recreation on it, I need to hear more than ice skating, because I'm an avid ice fisherman. Man, do I love being out on the ice and take my boys out there all the time, except I don't, because ice ain't much of a thing anymore.
Right.
Like, I mean,
So the other thing about that lake is, it's not a deep lake.
yeah,
So you're gonna get better ice quicker, longer.
if we are, then that does help.
And not fishing.
And you're not gonna ice
It's
fish.
pretty deep.
You're not gonna ice fish on that.
No, but I mean, in terms of the number of, the
Stop
number of
it.
winters we can't get out just because there's literally no ice cover, like at Paradise
Yeah.
Pond in Leominster, for example. All winter.
Yeah.
Is huge, and that's. I mean, and this, I think, as much as I'm gonna talk about the environment, I think it's a fair argument to make. Great, we have a pool. You know, however old it is, 100-ish years, whatever, we have a pool. We made the pool. It's on the dirt, we just gotta maintain the pool. And I think that's a fine argument too, but I just want us to think about.
Well, all that being said, I'm with you, that is a very low predator. I understand what they're trying to do, I don't disagree with what they're trying to do, but it ain't coming close to a lot of the other things that are on
Fair.
this list and other lists.
So. Can we talk a little bit about Wallace Park?
We can, this is
I
for.
found myself in a conversation with an interested observer of our meetings the other day. And the conversation around what exactly is the backstory on this surface? And why are we spending money on it now when we may have spent a lot of money on it as recently as 2019 or 2020?
Maybe 16,000.
Okay, so it wasn't a full,
I would have to look
Resurface?
further into that, I just know that dollar figure.
I thought it was a repair, not a resurface.
okay, I don't, so, yeah, and I didn't know the answer to that, and
I think that's what we talked about last
but
time.
Yeah.
in my mind, it wasn't a straight definitive answer on what happened there. In my mind, within the last several years, we resurfaced those courts, but that may not be the case.
I love a definitive answer on that because my feelings on this one change drastically. I've seen I mean, I don't even live near there and I've seen the use that park gets at all hours. But if the answer is that it was a if it has had a full resource and there's still issues, then I don't want to throw good money after bad.
Or why it's in the condition it is it in, was it a bad job, is there a surface issue, is it like, I feel like there's more to the story here that we don't have.
And I want it because I feel like that isn't only a park that's servicing a different population in terms of geography. Basketball courts versus rectangular fields versus diamond fields hit different populations in terms of the sports they prefer. And you do have the all-season athlete, but often there's something that people play one sport, be it a kid, an adult, they have one hobby sport they like, and having the variety meets those needs in a much broader way.
I think what we've got to do though is, and again, this is maybe on this year, but if we commit to building something, we've got to get it in our mindset that we maintain that something. That was kind of a big issue with the turf field. Everyone kind of thought of it as a one and done $1.5 million or something, and then it's like, oh. In 3 years, you need to spend another million on it.
So if anybody thought it was a one and done, they wouldn't listen, because it was never pitched as a one and done from the beginning.
Yeah, and I don't view this as, this is a one and done, like. This is an exposed surface, it gets a lot of use and it's an exposed surface and it's gonna have to be redone periodically, right? The question is are we doing the maintenance to minimize that, or is there something else structural going on?
I would start from a high level even higher. It's like, what does the manufacturer or the installer say we're gonna get as far as usage out of $30,000? If they say it's gonna get 5 years and we get 5 years, then we were told what to expect and we make a decision on that. If we say it's gonna be 5 years and we get 3, then then somewhere there's a disconnect. There's either a structural problem or the thing wasn't installed right, or we were not told the truth.
I would like more information. To whatever extent it can be shared via email, I think that.
Well, I would recommend that you send an email to the facility superintendent and get the answer. That would be the easiest, and then just share it with the board. Share with the board at a meeting.
I think Parks is gonna have the history.
Yeah, Parks, I don't think it's a.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I guess considering the timeline, and there's another one that's somewhat similar to this in terms of my thinking on it. Just in terms of thinking of the process and our timeline, I just, whatever we can do to figure out what the most expeditious way of getting an answer and sharing it, I think is in our best interest.
Yep. All right, so anybody have anybody on McNally? Senior center parking, this is just design now for the parking?
So, okay, that didn't register with me. So we changed this
You design only,
to a design.
right?
That, number will.
Because we agreed last time that there was no way that number was good for them to include construction.
Can you agree it's a low priority?
I don't think it's a low priority. I think it's a safety issue.
Well, I look at it as a low priority because somebody's gonna have to show me where the land is to do it. And we had this discussion last time, so.
And I agree with you on that. It does say low. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that the recommendation from the.
Yeah, I view this very differently than I view the 150,000, like to do a design and bang around these issues and come up with an estimate of what it's really gonna cost, and in my mind. We need to do that, I take a very different view than I took it on it last week, just given the different approach.
My view on it is still like pull out a satellite view. And start marking it up and get it before we even go into design. Like I'm an engineer, if you said design what? What are my requirements? What are you looking, what's off the table?
In terms of space.
Well, we had started, the end, I don't know if everyone remembers this, but, there was some additional information at the end of the capital planning process in December last year. And the concept was, between the building and Kids Kingdom for parking areas. I think it was around 19 spots, that would have parking there. But then we also started looking at Memorial Drive and adding, parking spaces, but it would require removal of some of the trees and some work there to be done, going further down towards TCP.
Yeah.
So the parking, but the parking would be between the senior center
That was the
and
conceptual.
not move Kids Kingdom?
Yeah.
And that added about 19
What
spots.
is it?
And the patio doesn't disrupt that. I don't have the patio on the current.
No, the patio, that was with the patio in mind.
The concept came
Yeah.
from the same people who did the patio design, if I recall.
Yes, yeah.
Wasn't the cost on that astronomical for 19 spaces
Well, it was because it was the net spaces, so there were, I'm not sure there were 19 spaces, but I recall that the net gain was like 7 spaces.
Yeah, that's,
Because you had to take out the spaces that you see on the right-hand corner there and that kind of thing, right? So that there's an ROI that you need to look at if your net gain is 7 spaces, then, you know, what are we doing? So,
Didn't we have concerns last year that said about water drainage concerns? Was that water?
Yeah,
Do you wanna
that
talk
was
about
part of
water?
the
So,
That would all be part of design work.
yeah,
I was saying, put in my planning hat, that's what the design engineers do. is-
No, but particularly because there's not a lot of land to work with.
right, and while we had was
Particular.
what we had last year was a conceptual design, not a detailed engineering
That's
plan. I think that the biggest hiccup, which we still have not resolved, which I think we probably should do. And I don't think that without the $35,000, given the timeline here, is we've got to resolve the available space relative to Kids Kingdom. And last year, I was looking at a map that had a property line that went right through the middle of that
Yeah.
field, which turned out to be erroneous.
Right.
So it's one contiguous property. At least that field is, we've agreed to that. And think that if the town who owns it resolves that, Kids Kingdom could or should be moved. And to Chris's point, we say, this is the available space, assuming you're gonna move Kids Kingdom. You're almost automatically gonna come up with a hell of a lot more than 7 net
Right,
parking spaces,
Yeah, right.
right? And in my mind, that should be the image, is let's sell us to an alleyway between those
I
two
agree.
properties, let's resolve what we're gonna, if Kids Kingdom moving it as a no-go, then we should know that. If moving it is feasible and the town wants to do that, then let's do it and figure out how to put parking where that is now.
The only way I get to, for myself, get to be okay with this is if somebody says, okay, this is not limited to the existing footprint that they're on, because if that's true, then if somebody says, hey, we're gonna look at and make recommendations about what you should do, all things being, possible, then I'm more likely to do it.
I think I agree with that assessment very much.
Who controls Kids Kingdom? The schools, the town,
The
the parks?
school maintains
But the
a
schools maintain.
But who owns the town?
Town.
done town property.
Right. Talk about that, talk about that, talk about that. DPW garage door. This seems to be to Chris's point, well, if you have something, you should maintain it,
Mhm.
so.
So,
The roof is, yes. Still an issue with the amount of roof we're doing. I don't disagree, but I also don't do commercial roofs, so I don't know what the budget should be.
so I had a very off-topic conversation with Michael Ray since last week about this, and just like, what do you think on this, him being in this space and knowing what commercial roofs and rubber roofs cost and that kind of thing? And, cause I got sticker shock over this number, considering the amount of space that this is actually addressing, and his answer, that's what it costs. So, it's robbery, in my opinion, but for whatever reason.
I've gotten answers from professionals in this that work at labor rates above prevailing wage that say that that's a ridiculously high number.
So, yeah, so, I mean,
I've got maybe residential rubber roofs are wildly different than commercial. rubber depression there or not, maybe that's incorrect, but. I got rubber roofs in my house and I've had work done on them. And even at the small scale patching, like taking off sections and fixing underneath and everything. This feels real high. I mean,
It defies logic, I mean, but you know.
The swag that they did, they,
Square footage, price, yeah.
And that was an actual estimate.
when was the TCP work done?
It's,
That,
Just
was a
approved.
project was just approved at town meeting,
Okay, so, alright,
so it's a very recent.
maybe I'm just thinking pre-pandemic. Prices and that, but that's. Okay.
This is why I say
What is the-
prevailing wage.
Right, and
We should
then prevailing
change
wage
that.
projects over what? Huh?
Any construction project,
Oh, any
is subject, yeah. Subject to prevailing wage, and that's a minimum of 30%, I'd say if not more. Mhm.
All right, and then the floor space. Well, so floor space. And this is just again, design. $35,000 seems to be the. Might be doing anything. But there's a coupon book for design, 35. And the town wanted key for that. Okay. I'm just sharing my screen. So does anybody have any other of the items, all the other ones, the police, the fire and IT have remained unchanged from when they were presented to us? So I don't know if anybody wants to revisit those.
I have a DPW question.
Okay,
I do have some DPW questions too.
well, let's go into the DPW.
But to answer your question, police, fire and IT, the only one is whether that training, where that training device would fall was the police.
Question is what, where it falls, from a priority standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, most of the rest of it is like. The police and fire is by the buildings, I mean, the vehicles per the plan.
You need a cruiser, yeah.
And IT is do some upgrades for cameras, which seems prudent.
Okay. So here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 projects for FY 2025.
Or DPW?
Yep, so we have the front end loader with a plow. We have a Northfield culvert on Kelly's Pond construction. The North Cemetery expansion area. A compressor and accessories. Drainage swales at 181 Reservoir Road. Drainage improvements on Laurel Lane. Cemetery enhancements.
Was cemetery enhancements,
And the DPW garage floor repairs, isn't it?
You've got it.
That's got in the facility.
Okay, so that's not here, so they have 9 then. Cemetery headstone restoration, North Cemetery new stone wall. So which one of those ones did you gentlemen want to speak?
Yeah, I just got blocked again. I was doing so good at hitting files and I just ran into a problem with the SharePoint again. So the discussion I'd like to pursue is around the loader. Is that,
The front end loader with a plow.
Yeah.
This one.
you're not sharing?
Oh, sorry. Go chair.
So. Let me cut to the chase. And I'm cognizant of the fact that this may overstep our bounds as a capital planning committee, but. It's been in my head since it was presented and I'm still kind of stuck on it. Lunenburg has gotten away with one loader. Since we got into the business of
Loading stuff.
loading. And I'm having a hard time with the argument that the old loader is getting old. We're seeing increased maintenance costs. We're seeing real issues. We need a new loader, but we're gonna keep the old loader as a backup, which means we're gonna have to continue to maintain the old loader. Which means at some point, we're gonna drive that old loader into the ground, which means we're gonna need a second loader and we're gonna be a 2-loader town. And in my mind, nothing has appreciably changed warrants the need for 2 loaders. I understand the need for backup or having something that while we're loading salt, maybe we can send somebody up and push up on corners that, you know, have gotten extended into the road on a, you know, after multiple consecutive storms or that kind of thing. Like, I see how it can be used. I don't see the pressing need to put ourselves on the hook for delivery, and it sounds like that's where we're at, with the argument being that the old loader is old. The other thing that's in my mind when it comes to loading salt is that you don't necessarily, to my knowledge, need a machine that big to put salt in most trucks. Now, I could be wrong about the real heavy high back. I think a backhoe will do the trick. You know, a loader that goes on a John Deere tractor or something along those lines will do the trick. It might not be that capacity. We've got a tractor on order, but that's a single purpose tractor because we don't have a crane to change the equipment on it. It just, in my mind, it's like, are we maximizing the use of what we have here? To that question in terms of tractors and backups and what we could potentially do with the tractor we're buying to trim vegetation on the side of the road, but I just have a really hard time ponying up $275,000 when the logic tells me that in 3 years, we're gonna have to pony up another $275,000 for the exact same thing.
I tend to be in alignment with your thoughts on. That's fine.
And if somebody told me we're gonna put the old one on municipal, I would have no problem prioritizing this, but the current characterization of the plan here, I'm really troubled by it.
And we have a mechanic in town too, right?
What, I don't understand like that, like, what does that mean?
That we can repair loaders
Yeah,
as
but
they.
sometimes it's specialized equipment, mechanic can't repair equipment, like,
Hard to
it
get
depends on
parts.
what it is. But I'm gonna insert this because I don't think the town realizes often enough how fortunate we are to have a mechanic we do have who works on all the vehicles. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
What I heard a couple of years ago where all the regular plow trucks were down and out and we were scrambled to order
We
replacements.
slow down.
Well, last year.
That's
Yeah.
drugs because of
So
supply chain
what-
issues.
Yeah, so.
But we're still loading our salt into contractor
Yeah, but
trucks. I mean, this is still
Yeah,
happening.
right, but I'm not, I don't know about this specific operation, but I see some towns that actually put a plow in the front of those things and they put them out in the street with.
Oh. loaders? Yeah.
He
We
said
do
that.
that.
Yeah, we do that on
It
like
says that
corners,
they use too.
pushing up corners, and they use our loader for all sections.
Intersections, yeah.
When the snow has to be moved off site.
They have for years. I mean, that's how this machine is used.
Well, not being a DPW worker or director, I'm certainly not gonna second guess what somebody thinks is the proper machines we need to operate the department. So I don't really have anything. The fact that we never had one, you could argue that the department was underpowered all those years. I mean, I'm sure when they got the first plow, like, what do you mean, we've done it with horses forever, why don't we just get Charlie and more horses?
Who
So-
put this on the list? Which DPW director?
Bill, Is it-
Was it Rob or Bill?
20,
It was projected 2 years ago, must have been Rob.
and Bill said is 19 months.
No. You've been around that long? Alright,
Oh, Bill hasn't been around 19 years.
last summer of
It
22.
was,
Yeah, so
May,
it's-
May.
Last summer would be 14 months.
Right,
Okay.
so this would have been Rob.
I just feel like over the last 4 years. The budgeting and 3 or 4 DPW directors, each comes in with like their own way of directing. And as a result, capital items kind of get put on or not. I do think it's our charter to question the DPW director and any director as to how we're operating now. I mean, I don't.
No, that's not that wasn't my point, you took that away from my point, I'm saying I'm not here to second guess, I mean, to say, wow, I was just commenting to Peter's point, that it's like, okay, we've done it with one for so long, why do we need one now? I mean, like, well, you could use that logic forever. I'm sure in the past it was used when we got the first one, or when we got the second plow truck, I mean, I don't know.
But I think Peter's point, it also gets into not that we're replacing one, it's that now we're the 2 lower town. We're coming from a 4-car family at one point, I guess they.
Well,
shouldn't throw stuff.
and my recollection of when, because Rob did come and present it to the finance committee a couple of years ago, and it was part of his out plan. And I remember it vividly because at the time I was on the warpath over the other tractor on the, that was doing the work that I thought the trackless was gonna be doing, and that kind of thing, right? So. But the argument that was made at the time, 2 years ago, was that the old loader is getting old and is gonna need to be replaced, right? Only within the last few weeks has it been, to my knowledge, that we need a second loader.
No.
And I just, that's the crux of the problem. It's not that we don't need a loader, we need a loader, and it needs to be a reliable loader. And a new loader theoretically should be very reliable if it's maintained.
Okay, is the argument being put forward, I don't know that we need a second loader? Or is the argument that we need a new loader? And the value of the loader on municipal, versus the opportunity value of having a second loader while it exists is beneficial. Now, it can absolutely then create a scenario, but it can create the scenario with, well, now we've adapted to it and always need a second loader. But is it something that is good while we have it, isn't necessary, and then when it goes away, we have a more reliable. It's like having a beater car for your kid, right? It's not gonna last forever, but it's nice while you have it, and then at some point it dies and.
That's not the way we do business, though. Right, I mean, as soon as we build this into our workflow, it's gonna be very difficult to remove it from the workflow.
I don't disagree with that assessment either.
We've replaced multiple vehicles that we previously replaced. In fact, the school department has a truck that, and we're glad to have it, but that's a truck that's a hand-me-down that was replaced on the capital plan. that got moved to the school department. School department is our vehicle was dead at the time, and the DPW gave a truck that was supposed to be offline to the school department, right? So, I mean, there are those circumstances where you have multiple similar vehicles. The police department does that as well, you know? This is a different story because it's a very low quantity item.
It's fair.
Wouldn't it make sense to ask Bill to come in and explain it?
Well,
We did,
We did.
we could probably rewatch it, but we did have a conversation on this, I think.
I wasn't here for that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, they're all recorded, so you can watch it, like watching
Yeah.
reruns and stuff, so.
And maybe played on local access television.
I guess to me, the thought we have to have as it relates to DPW, we all have to have it, but is prioritization of repairing infrastructure versus risk of equipment breaking and having redundant equipment. Cause that's kind of how you put cemetery aside. DPW either has equipment or they're doing infrastructure, I think. It's kind of the two things they do. And they're many times they're pretty expensive things.
Look at the rest of the.
I feel like you may have alluded to it before, but I get. With the rapid cycling of DPW directors, I don't know that we have a lot of institutional knowledge and. Is the reason something was put on necessary, then is that information effectively transferred? Is the philosophy the same? Or is it just, oh, this is how many things are there that are, well, it was here, it was part of the plan. And I don't really mean that as a slash against our current director. But that's a challenge with cycling people.
I can tell you that. Cause I've been for 7 years, worked with all the different directors. They speak to the staff, they find out what the needs are during operations. There's a lot of conversations with the mechanic about equipment and trucks. So it's not just one person's opinion on what the needs of the department is. It's, you know, understanding what challenges are happening out in the field, where their limitations are, the issues that are occurring with the equipment when they need to be repaired, what it's gonna mean for operations then if they're without a loader.
And I don't get the sense of people just trying to pad their budget
No.
at all. I really.
And I don't mean to imply that.
No, I understand, I just wanna say that out loud. I will say that, you know. It would be, I will certainly, coming from a business standpoint, it would be nice if we had analytical models and statistical models that say we can save people X amount of time if we have this other loader, because we'll be able to load them this much faster, they'll be on the road faster, therefore we'll be paying less overtime. But you know what? Nobody has time in the department that's been suffering for full employment to get those numbers. It would be nice to have those numbers,
Sure would,
but you're not gonna be getting
And
them.
I'm not even suggesting that. I think at a high level from my seat, looking at this is, we've got a really good track record and a really good DPW who manages to do amazing work without the best of equipment. They've never had the best of equipment in my lifetime. And I personally have prioritized and supported the things that I think, particularly when it comes to snow removal, that we need to do to get the job done, to include prioritizing replacing vehicles that needed to be retired before their time and those kinds of things, right? Like, I've been very reliable in supporting that. I just can't get my head around needing to double our capacity on this particular piece of equipment when everyone in town will tell you that our DPW does a really good job. nobody has to complain or wait too long when it comes to getting an intersection cleared out when the, you know, when the regular snow plows don't do a good job and they need the loader to come in and, you know, create a high banking or something along those lines. We're not at a point where, boy, we would be able to do a much better job if we just had another loader. The reasoning that I've been given, and I took a tour of the DPW a couple of years ago, not with Bill, but with Rob, was that thing is old. And it's got a lot of hours on it and it's gonna need to be replaced. Okay, I get it, and I know exactly what that thing does, because I see it out on the streets, I know that it loads salt, like, I mean, I get all of that. I just don't get that we need two of them.
Well, then the answer is that he's saying here that the other one's gonna need to be rebuilt. And we can certainly say at that point that. So this not gonna be an operating budget thing, maybe your capital plan, depending, I don't know how much a rebuild engine or a front loader of that size is. You can certainly say in 3 years, you know what, I don't know that you need to.
Yeah, like I said, I think once we have two,
We're gonna need to.
we're gonna need to. This is like closet space in your house, you know?
Okay,
I don't mean to minimize it.
No,
I
it's
just,
fine.
And he has worked here.
what?
No, this month, it will be 19 months.
Well,
And we try to not be as dependent on subcontractors out doing all this work.
Yes, well, I mean, we have,
oh, we always have.
yeah, we've always had
Right.
contractors, but our issue right now is because we don't have the trucks, or else we would be running. To our normal dependence on subcontractors.
All right, so, and the other item that I think we need to talk about is the stone wall, the $350,000 stone wall at North Cemetery.
To me, that's an easy one.
Okay.
I don't even understand why it's on the list, to be honest with you.
Well, it's on the list because it's $350,000, so it's certainly not. Operating. Budget.
I hate to say it, if the residents there start complaining, I'm willing to take it up. But until those constituents make their voices heard, I care less.
The residents are saying replant the arborvitaes and forget about a wall.
Oh, you misunderstand the residents, I mean,
The residents of.
of the cemetery itself.
Of the specific property on. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, this actually gets to a bigger question I have, which goes back to, like, I think I'm in fairly big support of let's expand North Cemetery,
Yeah.
that one, but what is our long-term cemetery plan? Because we keep, I mean, I know that in America for a while, it's been the whole, oh yeah, in perpetuity thing. There is not infinite land. We keep putting people in it.
Yeah, there's less, I think when Bill was here, I think. That the number of plots that people are buried in.
It's 7.
Right, 7, right?
Yeah.
So 7.
There's 100 left.
And then if you do North Cemetery, there's lots. So I don't think we're looking at a.
Yeah.
20, at the current rate, we're looking at least 25 years down the road with the North Cemetery development.
I'm all for expansion, I'm all for maintaining and beautifying our cemetery. I will be there in perpetuity at some point. I will be one of those.
Well, if you die within 25 years, otherwise.
Well, if I put my money down, I'll.
Right.
If I haven't done, but my parents have, and, you know, my grandparents and aunts and uncles are very.
You willing to put down 20 grand for number 7? We'll
Expensive deal. So, but I do support expansion. I think that the idea of this stone wall and the arborvitae's, you know, touched upon some issues that are operational issues that are not in our remit, but I'll share a story. I was walking through with my son, visiting family graves, about a month and a half ago in North Cemetery, and her name escapes me, but the chair of the safety of the cemetery commission approached us about this project.
Nancy, yes, go ahead.
And this was, you know, when the Warren article was being talked about for the ARPA stuff. And, you know, as we're having the discussion, I'm looking around and the condition of the cemetery was horrible. So we're talking about beautifying the cemetery and we can't mow the grass on the cemetery. So, you know, I do think there's sort of Maslow's hierarchy here. And it would be great if we had a cemetery that rivals some of the cemeteries, you know, in towns east of us with this kind of picturesque kind of thing. I just, for $350,000 relative to all of the other stuff that's on our list, it just, I can't in good conscience spend that money. The other thing that just kind of defies logic, and I understand that there are perfectly expensive people who are more intelligent than I am. We had 100-year arborvitae, we have 100-year arborvitae along that street line. The argument is that we can't replace that arborvitae because when you plant new arborvitae, you have to water the hell out of it for it to take root and to grow and be strong. And how did the 100-year arborvitae get there 100 years ago?
Well, I said the same thing.
It just defies logic to me,
I said
right?
the same.
Like, and there's a swamp 75 yards south of there. So, you know, we could probably pump water from the swamp. I don't know, but it just, I don't get this one. I just don't get it.
I don't disagree with you, that's what I'm saying, I mean, this is.
Is this gonna be on the thing for my entire tenure
Probably.
and my follow-ons tenure, or do we like take things off the?
Well, I think that's the opportunity.
People submit.
for later.
We don't keep a rolling list, nothing, things that don't make it this year don't automatically come back unless people resubmit them, so it's kind of like legislation. They bring it back, then we'll discuss it next year.
It's a lot.
You'll discuss it.
It's just, it's so much more. I mean,
You done with us?
if you told me it was $25,000 to $50,000, I don't know if I have a different point of view, but I might, you know, it's just that number is just.
Well, I'd love to hear more from the townspeople, and I don't think enough has gotten their involvement about what they want for it. Because again, I am completely in alignment with your thinking on all those different things, but first of all, yeah, you're not gonna replace a mature arborvitae and next year plant something that's gonna be mature. You're not gonna plant mature, it's gotta grow into it. So you have to deal with that, but plants grow and they grow a hell of a lot faster than you think they grow. So you have to take care of it for like maybe 3 to 5 years before it fills in, and then it'll be beautiful. But you have to deal with it 3 to 5 years. But the cost of that is that, okay, so you're only spending 120 grand, I think, or something like that was their cost, as opposed to 350.
Can use a loader full of water to put out each.
Well, I want. Why do cemeteries need
That's what it
fences?
is.
Well, like, I mean, if I can just. Keep them in. Well, so, yeah, no, I was saying, so the thing.
Trying to get in.
I think what it's saying is, can't we just put in a standard wrought iron zombie fence and be done with it? But I felt that like that might be important
There's
too.
lots of things, there's vegetative barriers, right? There's vegetative barriers, there's metal fences, there's split rail fences, there's stone walls, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things.
Why do we need I don't know, I think, why do we need to spend money on a barrier? Why can't,
You could have a barrier, I guess.
like, I mean, like, yeah, I get that cemeteries typically have them, but if that's not mandated somewhere by legislation, I don't know. Can it, why do we need a barrier? I don't see a huge safety issue per se. I guess I could see an argument of that. No, I don't. Say, because that prevents people from driving in, except there's roads that allow people to drive in, so. I just. Maybe that's money that doesn't have to be spent.
Okay, I don't want to dwell on these things. It sounds like, for the most part, I know where people stand.
Yeah.
And everybody knows where everybody stands. Okay, the headstone restoration, I'm gonna go past these because again, I wanna have a discussion so we get a good feeling for things, but we don't have to beat everything into the ground. So, anybody?
I am weirdly in favor of this one, just because I like the. Headstones are one of the best ways in track history.
Yeah.
And if they're not maintained, we lose them forever and that data gets.
This is the charge of the cemetery and the cemetery commission, is to maintain the cemetery. This is maintaining the cemetery. I'm completely in favor of it.
And we did a portion of this, right?
No,
Or we
no,
didn't?
we didn't last year, we took it off.
Okay. Yeah, in my mind, I thought we had, I guess.
Order passed, this is more cemetery enhancements. Again, I don't have any problem with this, I mean, I argued what all those things would be in operating, because they're talking about 6 different things. But fine,
So one thing I will say on this, I think in a public property where we have the American flag on top of the flagpole, we have got to
headlines,
have lights.
oh yeah,
I mean, at
especially
a
since
bare
it's better a
minimum,
lot. It'd be nice
At a
to
bare
follow stuff
minimum,
that
we gotta
got
do
that.
that,
Yeah, I
right?
agree,
Like,
so, I agree. Lauren Lane drainage. Had lots of discussion about drainage that night, I'd rather not revisit drainage unless somebody feels so inclined.
Well, I guess what's everyone's feeling as it relates to the drainage and culverts and
so I think,
diverting of water appropriately.
you know, number one, I think, I would love to see the, you know, aside from what we do here, I do think we need some kind of plan that gives us some visibility on where these massive drainage issues are coming and when they have to be dealt with, and, you know, kind of like we did, pavement management. And to whatever extent we can figure out a way to get them off the capital plan and paid for by some other function, I think that would be good, and I think that the state law does provide for that. We would just need to figure out and go do that. But we gotta deal with these problems while we're doing the other stuff, and I think, you know, whether it's this one or Flat Hill Road, which is not on here right now, I don't believe, or
This one,
or Reservoir Road, I think we should probably be on a path for doing one a year, you know, and picking one and, you know, then, and lining them up. I don't know if that's sustainable, but like, I feel like we gotta do something.
well, this one, we heard from the resident, we heard from the neighbor who happens to be the fire chief in support of it. I know it's been going on forever, and I think it's solvable by the town. And I definitely,
Was this an issue that was caused by a change that was made by the town? I can't remember that conversation.
partially, yeah,
Didn't they put a berm in or something?
Partially, yeah.
Wells.
they put it, they put in the berms and the
There as
berm,
well.
right,
It was trying to mitigate other buildings.
it channeled all the water down and it curved off right directly into the residents.
Yeah.
So that was after the prop. And then the berm ended and went right into the road, so.
This is a good room to ask this question. It's topical, but less direct. What board owns the stormwater task force?
no
It has
board,
representatives from different boards.
Is it
Sure.
appointing?
Like-
Well, I mean, like, Economic Development Committee. When I say owned, I mean, like, it comes from the planning board originally, and like,
Just so that it's comprised of.
on the high level, who is beyond the members of that committee, who is responsible for that committee? The answer would be
Well, insofar as it's appointed by the,
that's
but
fine.
I think there are some members, I think it's like this board. that there are some represented, like they're elected by their other bodies, I believe, so it's very similar in its construction.
But they have a charter or something that defines.
There's a charge.
There's a, yeah, charge.
Yeah.
That's it, and who is able to edit that charge? Is it the,
The select board.
Right.
so, okay, that's where, all right. I may be coming in with some questions or something to wrap my mind around,
We'll meet
because
tomorrow at 7.
I would also like to stay married. So,
We have a meeting tomorrow at 7. It's a trick question.
But I think the other side of that is either the DPW director has to have the knowledge himself. Or have someone at his disposal to be able to properly plan for stormwater going forward. So I don't know how that, I mean, that's not a capital item, but it relates the operations leads to capital. Yeah, but you have adequate, right?
Adequate engineering budget, not if you consider
Right.
projects, you know.
Adequate would be relative.
and this one is that? This is not an engineering project, is this engineering or is this the whole kit and caboodle?
It already
It's
has.
already happened, this is. Okay, that's okay, I just wanted to verify. Swales.
Yeah, in my mind, not,
Why isn't the noise of that motor on the capital thing?
not, yeah, right, next year. Not that I view one problem as greater than the other. This is substantially less cost. And it seems like a much more solvable problem in my mind.
Yep.
And therefore, I'd rather have an impact with less or our limited available funds.
So Laurel Lane and Reservoir both have plans that have been drawn up. Have the
Yeah,
abutters all been made aware of what these plans are?
That I'm not
No idea.
aware of. But yeah, this states right here, CEI, who is our stormwater consultant. That's drawn up. We're right, something about-
We have the compressor, air compressor and accessories. The North Station.
this one, yeah.
In the boat, this one, yeah. This is the thing, that needs to be in place, because otherwise it's gonna go out, and you're gonna have a slide down the road that you really have to close to it, which is not good. Fix it anyways, but it's not.
Not that one, isn't it?
I have in my notes, this may be fundable with grants or earmarks, I don't remember the full.
Right, well, we could apply for them, right, always.
For this project.
This is the Kelly Pond, the Northfield Pole. Well, near the golf course.
Don't Bill had addressed that, didn't you ask a question about whether it's a small bridge?
It's not,
It's not,
Not a visible. Small bridge.
earmark, this could be a $100,000 earmark or something like that.
I also have in my notes, it's not, it could not be done with small bridge grants, so.
Yeah.
Those are good
Our
notes.
legislators are seeking reelection, so most of the time they'd like to help us.
Here.
Hmm?
We didn't get any earmarks.
What we've got.
Nothing.
Yeah. We
Nothing
got
that's,
earmarks, but we didn't. I think some of them were on like bonding funds that should get funded.
Oh,
No direct budget earmarks, no. All right. That's DPW. Does anybody need to see the other? Police, fire, or IT?
No, I think all those are the plan, and with the exception of the police trainer. It's kind of a pop up. I don't know how people feel that one.
I am super, super in favor of that myself.
Yeah.
I just, I believe I want to do a little bit more research on the Milo training system, but if it is as presented and does have a strong emphasis, or ability to emphasize de-escalation, to me, that's worth its weight. That kind of thing is worth its weight in gold, because that is what I have a lot of admiration for what the chief is doing about having the officers embedded with the community and part of the community, not separate and above in their minds, as you see in some municipalities. And I think encouraging, keeping that up and fostering it is only good for the whole town. I do want to do some more research on the system to make sure it is, when I say it is as portrayed, I don't mean to imply that there was any intentional misleading, but does the data back it? If there is data.
I think in today's day and age, you want your police officers to be as well trained for as many different scenarios as there possibly are, and to whatever extent we can help support it. I put this in the same category as I do the window film, you know what I mean? Like it's there are just too many horror stories out there of, you know, clearly the training did not land or didn't happen. And I'd rather that not happen here.
Okay, so. I will work with the town manager, we will get a spreadsheet of all the items. Because we do not have a meeting next week, but we have two meetings the week after, Monday, December 18th, and Thursday, December 21st, both at 6 p.m. in this room. And it is my intention to get that list to everybody so they can prioritize their list before the next meeting. Before the Monday 18th, so that we can look at it. And then you can all submit your listings back to me so I can compile and correlate all averages, etc. Have a discussion about how that ranks out, have people discuss whether they pitch things that should be higher and lower. I will say, just for those people new or for people listening, my own criteria is to make sure that the money that gets is as fairly and equally distributed among departments, citizenry about who it assists, about sections of town, about needs, obviously themselves. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of parameters that weigh into my decision as one member in coming to this. It's not going to, I don't want, oh, here's the top 12 or this department, or the top 12 is this area. I would encourage people to, and I think the rest of the committee will address things with a similar, maybe not identical balancing system, so that we come up with something that, again, people can look at and say, hey, listen, we're trying to distribute the resources we have in the fairest and most meaningful way for long-term solutions.
You just want a one to end list on it, that's.
Right,
Is that-
so however many there are, yeah, so yeah, I should go over this because this gets long. Yeah, so, yes, if there are, I'm just gonna take, I don't know the exact number, but let's just say there's 27 items on the list. The goal of each individual member is to rank them from 1 to 27 with no blanks and no duplicates. Okay, from 1 being your highest priority and the 27 being the least priority.
And when you do that on the spreadsheet, do not resort them into a different
That
order.
is also correct. That is
Not
also.
that I made that mistake last year, but I gave Tom a big head.
Because if everybody keeps the spreadsheet order exactly what it is, all I can do is copy a column. Cause
I want you as members to send them only to me, you don't send them to the whole board. Because that would be against my open meeting, you send them to me, I will collate them. And we will have them for the next meeting, where everybody will see them, but if you start reordering them by rank. Then I have to start figuring out, and that is absolutely nightmarish, so. Oops. I will kick, like a hockey goalie, I will kick it back out and say rejected.
Or no V lookup?
What?
I'll tell you what, this sounds really easy. I had so many repetitive numbers and it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Last year trying to do this, so I need to come up with a better system this year or something, I don't know.
Yeah, and we had some people who didn't want to rank things, because they're like, it doesn't qualify, I think it should be on this list. But that causes havoc with the ranking system, because other people are ranking it, so you have to, everybody's gotta have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, ... To you using your number of items on the list. Is there anybody who's not clear on that?
And there's no ties.
All integers, right? No.
All
irrational
integers, right?
numbers or
That's
In decimal integers, not
Four
hexadecimal.
pi.
all whole numbers
So
even.
you're gonna have, Tom, you're gonna have 5 columns, one for each person.
Right,
You put your numbers in, but leave
you leave
the
everybody else.
subject matter alone, just.
All you're filling in is your column.
Yeah.
And since we're having a meeting on Monday, the 18th, I am hoping that I will try to get this together. When do we think we can get this together, the list?
I'm working on it right now.
Okay, so if the meeting is on the 18th, at least get it to me by, the 16th. So I have the weekend to work on it. I don't want anything coming in on, Sunday night football and say, oh, I gotta get it done because I have to work the day after, so I'm not gonna be able to put any time.
I appreciate you saying that, because I would otherwise absolutely send it to you on Sunday night, so,
Yeah, don't send it on.
yeah, I'm sorry, there.
You can send it to me well before. I'm gonna try with the town manager to have it to everybody by let's say, we'll try for Thursday, so you'll have. Basically 9 days. To try to get it. If you're trouble with
SharePoint. Sorry,
excuse me,
so I'm used to, when I was back working, we had a spreadsheet in the shared folder that everybody had access to
they
that.
were not doing it.
Yeah, that would be deliberation. I guess.
Yeah,
Right, exactly,
can't
that would
do
be a
that.
violation of open meeting.
Technically, you could do that, but
Okay,
Not if you're on a public board in the state of Massachusetts, you can't do that.
Right. Okay. So the next meeting, as I said, is Monday, December 18th at 6 p.m. right here. Are there any other items needed for the next meeting? Confirm the next meeting time and location. So any public comment from the public first?
And I just
Yes, you may.
clarification.
Sure.
So this ranking is in the spreadsheet for the school projects. The window film, even though it's one project, the ranking is split.
No, the window film is 3 projects.
No, it's the same project number.
Well, we need to fix that.
Yeah, split it into three. This is in,
They're all up
is
here.
this in clear gov?
Yeah.
Right, that's the
But
clear
that's how
gov number?
it was given as a project last year, so it
Right,
follows that.
how I see the issue is because we kept the project number from the year
Mhm.
previous, but
Was there a way to get a new project number?
I think we're gonna have to go down that route. I'm sorry, that didn't even occur to me, sorry. That's
So I see no public comment from the public, even though we have public following us, okay, so. Any public comment from committee members?
they're more gender. I got a question, I guess. I saw all those minutes get posted into the
Yes,
our shared.
yes, we will put that, yes, please review those. And we'll put it on the next two meetings,
Did we approve
for one set of minutes. That
Okay,
was
but what-
last time.
last year, didn't we? No.
There was, I don't know how they never got to.
But they're from like 2011,
Yeah.
2021, and
Payroll.
Well, 2021 is not gonna, we're not gonna get, I don't, unless some
No,
miracle.
there's two sets that Paula Bertram
Right, she,
did that were submitted after the end of last year's cycle.
so it's gonna be pro forma if we're gonna approve those, because we'll have no idea, I probably not.
Watched the, I think it was January meeting. Right, February,
but everything in the minutes to review.
December sixth or
Should
whatever
be
that
reviewed.
date
Should be
is,
reviewed,
approved at that
okay.
meeting. So,
And again, if you weren't there, then it's just gonna be pro forma,
I don't
so
think
we
there's
need to
any-
review and.
I don't think there's anything too controversial. I wouldn't.
I mean, all the meetings are on YouTube. So,
Only last year and this year. For years previous.
To see if the minutes are accurate, I'm certainly, I mean,
You don't watch
I'm not gonna watch old minutes. I know what happens in all of them, yes. Any other comments from the committee? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed, none, it passes unanimously, we are adjourned. Good night, everyone.